Beneath New Mexico's endless sky, where ancient mesas rise like sleeping giants from the desert floor, something extraordinary waits in the shadows. Here, carved into living rock and buried beneath centuries of wind-blown sand, are mysteries that challenge everything we think we know about the past. From stone chambers that shouldn't exist to astronomical alignments that defy explanation, this land holds secrets older than memory itself. From ancient stone to enduring legends, New Mexico's past blurs into something stranger than history. The Chaco Canyon Mystery Chambers. The first thing that hits you at Chaco Canyon is the silence, not the gentle quiet of a forest or the soft hush of falling snow, but something deeper, more absolute. It's the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat, your own breathing. As you walk the dusty trails between the great houses, your footsteps echo off sandstone walls that have stood for over 1,000 years. The air smells of sage and stone, and overhead ravens circle in lazy spirals against a sky so blue it almost hurts to look at. But it's not the famous great houses that hold the deepest mystery here. Hidden throughout the canyon are smaller structures, stone chambers built with such precision that archaeologists still argue about how they were constructed. These aren't the well-documented rooms of Pueblo Bonito or Casarinada. These are the forgotten spaces, the ones that don't appear on tourist maps, tucked into cliff faces and buried beneath rockfall. The chambers are small, barely large enough for a person to stand upright. Their walls are made of thin sandstone slabs fitted together without mortar, each piece shaped to match its neighbors with mathematical precision. Some have perfectly circular openings that frame specific stars at certain times of year. Others contain acoustic properties that amplify whispers into clear speech across impossible distances. The floors are often carved from bedrock, smooth as glass, with channels and depressions whose purpose remains unknown. What the archaeological record tells us is straightforward enough. Chaco Canyon was the center of ancestral Puebloan civilization between 850 and 1150 CE. The great houses were built to astronomical alignments, serving as both ceremonial centers and administrative hubs for a culture that controlled trade routes across the southwest. The smaller chambers, according to mainstream interpretation, were likely storage rooms, workshops, or spaces for religious practice. Simple, practical, understandable. But the oddities pile up like storm clouds on the horizon. The precision of construction in these hidden chambers exceeds even that of the great houses. Some are carved directly into cliff faces at heights that would challenge modern equipment. Others are positioned in locations where the effort required to build them far exceeds their apparent function. There are chambers with walls so thin they're translucent when backlit by the sun, yet they've stood for centuries without cracking. Some contain stone seats carved to exact body measurements, as if made for specific individuals. Then there are the alignments. While the great houses track obvious celestial events like solstices and equinoxes, these smaller chambers point to star patterns invisible to the naked eye. One chamber discovered only in the 1990s has an opening that perfectly frames the Pleat star cluster at its highest point, but only for 3 nights each year. Another tracks the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle that most ancient cultures couldn't have known about. Local Navajo tradition speaks of the ancient ones who came before, beings with knowledge of the stars and the ability to shape stone like clay. Some stories describe chambers where time moved differently, where the ancestors could see across vast distances or commune with spirits. Pueblo oral histories tell of spaces where sound could travel through solid rock, connecting distant locations across the canyon system. More speculative theories suggest the chambers might have been part of a vast acoustic network, allowing communication across the entire Chaco system through underground resonance. Some researchers propose they were astronomical computers, stone mechanisms for tracking celestial cycles, too complex for casual observation. A few fringe theorists even suggest they might have served as meditation chambers designed to alter consciousness, their precise dimensions creating specific frequency resonances in the human brain. Standing in one of these chambers, as afternoon light filters through stone openings, you feel the weight of intentionality. Every angle, every carved surface, every carefully placed stone seems to serve a purpose just beyond understanding. The walls hum with a barely perceptible vibration, and sounds from outside seem both muffled and amplified in strange ways. If these were just storage rooms, why build them with such impossible precision? If they were ceremonial spaces, why hide them so carefully? And why do they continue to track celestial events with an accuracy that suggests knowledge we've only recently rediscovered? The Galasto Basin Stone circles 20 miles south of Santa Fe, where the Galasto Creek winds through high desert punctuated by volcanic ridges. You'll find something that doesn't belong in any textbook. The drive takes you through country that looks empty at first glance, all pinyon and juniper and red dirt roads that seem to lead nowhere. But pull over at the right spot, walk a few hundred yards into the scrubland, and suddenly the landscape reveals its secret. Stone circles, dozens of them, scattered across miles of rolling terrain, like ancient crop circles made of rock. Some are perfect rings 20 ft across, others form spirals that curve inward towards central stone cannons. A few create complex geometric patterns, interlocking circles and straight lines that can only be fully appreciated from above. They're built from local sandstone, each rock placed with deliberate care, and they've been here so long that desert varnish has stained them the same rust color as the surrounding cliffs. The silence here is different from Chaco. It's not absolute, but layered, filled with the whisper of wind through stone and the distant cry of hawks. In spring, wildflowers bloom in the protected spaces within the circles. In summer, the rocks radiate heat that shimmers in visible waves. Come here at dawn or dusk, and the circles seem to glow in the slanted light, their shadows creating secondary patterns on the ground. What makes these formations so puzzling is their variety and precision. The simplest are perfect circles, but others incorporate complex mathematical relationships. Some align with cardinal directions on the horizon. A few seem others point to specific peaks to mirror star patterns, their stone arrangements matching constellations visible at certain times of year. The largest encompasses nearly an acre, its perimeter marked by standing stones that create sightlines to distant landmarks. Archaeologists who've studied the site date the circles to different periods. Some appear to be relatively recent, perhaps a few hundred years old. Others show signs of much greater age, their stones sunk deep into earth that's accumulated over centuries. Carbon dating of organic material found within the circles suggests construction spanning at least 1,000 years, with some sites potentially much older. The mainstream interpretation is cautious, but logical. These could be the remains of ceremonial structures built by various PBLO cultures over many generations. The circles might have marked seasonal gathering places, astronomical observation sites, or spiritual centers where different groups came to trade, intermarry, and share knowledge. The variety in design could reflect different cultural traditions or changing practices over time. But several aspects of the site challenge conventional explanations. The mathematical precision of the circles suggests knowledge of advanced geometry. Some formations incorporate the golden ratio and other proportional relationships that weren't supposedly known in pre-Columbian America. The astronomical alignments are more sophisticated than necessary for basic agricultural timing, tracking subtle celestial events like lunar standstills and planetary conjunctions. Local Hispanic and PBLO communities have long known about the circles, though their stories about them vary. Some describe them as places where the ancestors gathered to read the sky. Others speak of them as gateways, though to what remains unclear. One recurring theme in oral tradition is that the circles were built by people who understood the connection between earthly and celestial patterns, who could read messages written in stone and star. More controversial theories suggest the circles might represent a form of ancient astronomy far more advanced than we've given Native American cultures credit for. Some researchers propose they functioned as a kind of stone computer, their arrangements encoding complex mathematical and astronomical data. Others suggest they might have been part of a larger system of sites across the southwest, connected by sightlines and shared geometric principles. Walking among the circles as evening approaches, you begin to notice patterns within patterns. The way shadows fall at certain times reveals additional alignments. The spaces between stones frame distant peaks in ways that can't be accidental. Some circles seem designed to amplify sound, creating whisper chambers where quiet conversation carries clearly across the formation. The most unsettling aspect is how natural they feel despite their obvious artificiality. These aren't imposing monuments demanding attention. They settle into the landscape as if they grew from it, as much a part of the desert as the arroyos and mesa, yet their precision betrays human intelligence, careful planning, and knowledge that seems to transcend their humble materials. Why create such elaborate patterns in such a remote location? If they were ceremonial sites, why scatter them across such a wide area? And how did their builders achieve such mathematical precision using only stone tools and careful observation? The petroglyphs of Three Rivers. The turnoff is easy to miss. State Route 54 cuts straight through the Tolosa Basin, past Criasso Flats that stretch to the horizon in every direction. But 20 miles north of Kazoo, a small sign points west toward Three Rivers, and suddenly the landscape begins to change. The road climbs through rolling hills covered in cholla and ocato, past weathered mesas that catch the morning light like ancient altars. The air smells of dust and sage, and overhead, turkey vultures ride thermals that rise from sun-baked stone. At first, the petroglyph site looks unremarkable. A low ridge of black basalt rises from the desert floor, its surface covered in desert varnish, so dark it seems to absorb light. Scattered across this volcanic canvas are over 21,000 individual rock art images, carved into the stone by hands, will never shake. Some are barely visible, worn smooth by centuries of wind and weather. Others stand out sharp and clear as if they were carved yesterday. The site spans a mile of ridgeline, with images scattered across nearly every exposed rock face. There are spirals and circles, human figures with elaborate headdresses, animals both recognizable and strange. Geometric patterns repeat across vast distances with mathematical precision. Some images are tiny, no bigger than a hand. Others stretch across entire cliff faces visible from miles away. What makes Three Rivers unique isn't just the quantity of images, but their complexity and apparent sophistication. Many petroglyphs here incorporate advanced geometric principles. Some use the golden ratio in their proportions. Others demonstrate knowledge of astronomical cycles, their positions corresponding to star patterns visible at specific times of year. A few seem to map the landscape itself, showing water sources, travel routes, and landmark features with surprising accuracy. Archaeological evidence suggests the site was used continuously for over 1,000 years, from around 900 to 600 CE. The images were created primarily by the Hornado Magalon people, ancestors of modern PBLO communities, to mainstream archaeology. The petroglyphs represent a kind of desert library, recording everything from seasonal observations to spiritual beliefs, from territorial markers to astronomical calendars. But the deeper you look into the details, the stranger things become. Some images appear to show objects that shouldn't have existed in pre-Columbian America. There are spirals within spirals that create optical illusions, seeming to move when viewed from certain angles. Some petroglyphs are positioned so precisely that they are only visible during specific weather conditions, when morning mist or afternoon shadows reveal hidden layers of meaning. Local Apache and Hispanic communities have long held that Three Rivers is more than just ancient art. Some stories describe the images as maps to hidden water sources or sacred sites scattered across the southwest. Others speak of them as messages left by star people, beings who came from the sky to teach the ancestors about mathematics, astronomy, and the movement of celestial bodies. One persistent legend tells of petroglyphs that glow at certain times. Though no scientific explanation has ever been offered, the most intriguing aspect might be the apparent coordination between distant image groups. Petroglyphs separated by hundreds of yards seem to form connected narratives when viewed in sequence. Some researchers suggest they might represent a form of ancient writing system, more sophisticated than previously thought possible. Others propose they function as a kind of stone computer encoding complex astronomical and mathematical data in visual form. Standing among the carved rocks as sunset approaches, you begin to notice things that aren't immediately obvious. The way certain images align with distant mountain peaks, how shadows cast by one petroglyph point directly to another, the strange acoustic properties of the ridge, where sounds seem to carry farther than they should and echo in unexpected directions. The silence here has weight, broken only by the whisper of wind through volcanic stone. In that quiet, it's easy to imagine the people who climbed this ridge centuries ago, chiseling their knowledge into black rock under the same endless sky. But what knowledge were they preserving? And why choose this remote ridge miles from any permanent settlement to create what might be the largest gallery of rock art in the southwest? The Shiprock phenomenon. From any direction you approach it, Shiprock dominates the horizon like something from another world. Rising nearly 1,700 ft from the desert floor of northwestern New Mexico, this volcanic neck stands alone against the sky. Its jagged silhouette visible from 50 meters away. The Navajo call it Say, the rock with wings, and their stories say it was once a giant bird that carried their ancestors to this land. But the rock holds mysteries that go deeper than legend. Anomalies that challenge our understanding of both geology and human history. The formation itself is straightforward enough to geologists. 27 million years ago, volcanic magma pushed up through sedimentary rock, hardening into a plug of solidified lava. Over millions of years, softer rock eroded away, leaving behind the resistant volcanic core we see today. It's a textbook example of a volcanic neck, dramatic but perfectly explainable. What's less explainable are the structures found around its base. Hidden among the talus slopes and desert scrub are stone arrangements that do not match any known architectural tradition. Some appear to be circular foundations, their stones arranged with mathematical precision despite their apparent great age. Others form straight lines that point directly at the rock's summit, as if marking pathways or sight lines to the towering formation above. These aren't the well-documented ruins of ancestral Puebloan or Navajo settlements. They're smaller, more subtle, often half-buried in wind-blown sand. Some are built from local sandstone, carefully shaped and fitted together. Others incorporate chunks of the same volcanic rock that forms Shiprock itself, somehow transported from the nearly vertical slopes above. A few show signs of extreme age. Their stones so weathered they're barely distinguishable from natural rock formations. Carbon dating of organic material found within some structures suggests they're at least 1,000 years old, possibly much older, but their purpose remains unclear. They're too small to have been permanent dwellings, too isolated to have served as storage facilities. Some researchers suggest they might have been ceremonial sites, temporary shelters built by people making pilgrimages to the sacred rock. Others propose they could be astronomical observation posts positioned to track celestial events visible above Shiprock's distinctive silhouette. Navajo oral tradition offers a different perspective. Stories speak of the rock as a place of power where the ancestors could communicate with beings from the sky. Some tales describe strange lights that would appear around the formation at night, moving in patterns that suggested intelligence rather than natural phenomena. Others tell of sounds that would emerge from the rock itself, low humming that could be heard for miles across the desert. More speculative theories suggest Shiprock might have served as a kind of ancient landmark or navigation aid for travelers crossing the vast southwest. Its unique shape and massive size make it visible from enormous distances. And the stone arrangements around its base could have been built to mark important directions or encode information about water sources, seasonal changes, or safe passage through hostile territory. But there's another layer to the mystery, one that becomes apparent only when you spend time in the area after dark. Local residents, both Navajo and non-native, have long reported unusual phenomena around Shiprock. Unexplained lights that move in coordinated patterns, electronic equipment that malfunctions without apparent cause, sounds that seem to come from the rock itself, including metallic ringing and low-frequency humming that can be felt as much as heard. Some of these reports can be dismissed as misidentified aircraft or atmospheric phenomena. The area lies beneath several military flight paths, and temperature inversions can create unusual acoustic effects. But the consistency of the accounts spanning generations and cultural boundaries suggests something more complex might be happening. Standing at the base of Shiprock as evening approaches, you feel the weight of its presence. The massive formation seems to absorb sound, creating an almost supernatural quiet that's broken only by the occasional whisper of wind through stone. The air itself feels different here, charged with an energy that might be psychological or might be something else entirely. In the fading light, the rock's silhouette against the stars looks less like a natural formation and more like something deliberately placed, a marker or monument left by intelligence beyond our understanding. The structures scattered around its base take on different meanings in this context. Were they built by people seeking to harness or understand the rock's apparent power? Do they represent attempts to communicate with whatever forces might be associated with this towering formation? Or are they simply the remnants of ordinary human activity made mysterious by time and our own need to find meaning in the unknown? If Ship is just a geological formation, why do so many independent witnesses report similar strange phenomena? If the surrounding structures are just ancient campsites or ceremonial areas, why build them with such apparent precision in such a remote and challenging location? And why do the old stories told by people who lived here for generations before any scientific explanation existed describe experiences that modern visitors still report today? The Valley of Fires Formation, 40 kilometers north of Roswell, where the high desert gives way to broken messes and ancient lava flows. There's a place that looks like the surface of another planet. The Valley of Fires recreation area sits atop a massive malp, a badlands of black volcanic rock that stretches for miles in every direction. From the highway, it looks like nothing more than a dark scar across the landscape. But walk the trail that winds through this maze of hardened lava, and you'll discover something that shouldn't exist here at all. The malpais itself formed about 5,000 years ago when lava poured from a fissure in the earth, creating one of the youngest major lava flows in the continental United States. The molten rock cooled into a jagged landscape of pressure ridges, collapsed trenches, and lava tubes. It's a harsh environment where only the hardiest plants can survive, where summer temperatures can reach 120 degrees, and where the black rock radiates heat like a furnace, even hours after sunset. But scattered throughout this volcanic wasteland are structures that defy easy explanation. Stone circles built on top of the lava flow, their rocks carefully selected and arranged despite the challenging terrain. Linear alignments of standing stones that point toward distant mountain peaks. Rectangular enclosures whose walls incorporate both volcanic rock and sandstone blocks carried from miles away. Some structures are built directly into natural lava tubes, transforming underground caverns into chambers with precise acoustic properties. The official interpretation is that these are relatively recent constructions built by Apache or other nomadic groups who used the lava flow as a natural fortress. The harsh terrain would have provided protection from enemies, while the numerous caves and overhangs offered shelter from the elements. The stone structures might have been hunting blinds, temporary shelters, or markers for navigation across the confusing landscape. But the archaeological evidence tells a more complex story. Some structures show signs of much greater age than expected, their stones blackened by desert varnish that takes centuries to develop. Others are positioned with astronomical precision, aligned to track celestial events with accuracy that suggests sophisticated knowledge of astronomy. A few incorporate construction techniques that seem oddly advanced for temporary hunting camps. Local Apache tradition speaks of the Malpai as a place of power where the earth as fire still burns beneath the surface. Some stories describe it as a gateway to the underworld, where spirits of the ancestors can be contacted through rituals performed in the lava tubes. Others tell of strange lights that dance across the black rock at night, moving in patterns that suggest intelligence rather than natural phenomena, standing among the lava formations as twilight deepens. You begin to understand why this place inspired such stories. The black rock seems to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating an otherworldly landscape where familiar concepts of distance and direction become confused. Sounds carry strangely here, echoing off unseen surfaces and seeming to come from directions that don't match their sources. The temperature differential between the sun-baked surface and the cool lava tubes creates updrafts that whisper and moan like distant voices. Some researchers have proposed that the Valley of Fires might have served as an ancient astronomical observatory, its elevated position and minimal light pollution making it ideal for celestial observation. Others suggest the lava tubes could have functioned as resonance chambers designed to amplify sound for communication across vast distances. A few fringe theorists even propose that the site might be connected to the nearby Roswell incident, suggesting that the area's unusual geological properties could attract or facilitate unexplained phenomena. More prosaic explanations focus on the site's defensive advantages. The lava flow would have been nearly impossible for mounted enemies to cross, while the numerous caves and hidden passages could have sheltered small groups for extended periods. Water collects in natural basins throughout the Malpai, and despite its harsh appearance, the area supports surprising wildlife populations. But questions remain. Why build elaborate stone structures on top of such challenging terrain when easier construction sites were available nearby? How did builders achieve such precise astronomical alignments using only primitive tools and naked eye observation? And why do modern visitors continue to report strange phenomena in an area where ancient peoples apparently performed rituals designed to contact otherworldly forces? The mystery deepens when you consider that the Valley of Fires is just one of several similar sites scattered across New Mexico. Each features stone structures built on or near volcanic formations. Each is associated with indigenous stories of supernatural activity, and each continues to generate reports of unexplained phenomena from modern visitors. If these were just practical shelters built by nomadic peoples, why invest so much effort in astronomical precision? If they were ceremonial sites, what specific rituals required such remote and challenging locations? And why do the old stories told by people who knew this land intimately describe experiences that contemporary witnesses still report today? The bandolier cavates beneath New Mexico's vast sky. Patterns emerge from the silence, stone chambers that track celestial cycles we barely understand, circles that encode mathematical relationships in wind-blown desert, petroglyphs that map landscapes, both earthly and cosmic. Each site whispers the same question in its own ancient voice. Were these the work of practical people solving everyday problems, or did they know something we've forgotten? Maybe the answer lies not in choosing between science and mystery, but in accepting that some knowledge lives in the space between them. The desert keeps its secrets, but it never stops speaking to those willing to listen.